Hello and welcome back to Group B in the HGC Finals group stages. We are one match in. We just saw Fnatic take a clean 2-0 victory over Darksided. They move on into the group. And now, up next, Team Freedom from North America up against Beyond the Game from China. Who's going to take it? Let's head on over to the analyst desk with Kalaris and find out.
That's right, thank you very much, Cloak, and indeed our second series about to commence in just a few moments' time. But of course, we had our first series conclude, Fnatic taking that 2-0 victory, quite handedly, I would say there, going up against Darksided. Joining me, we have Calder, we have Wolf, we have Skimmy. And Skimmy, you've gotten to cast your boys home and away, you're basically neighbors. It was an impressive little cast that you did there.
I mean, it was good to see them come out guns blazing, not going to be too deterred by the fact that it is Fnatic. A lot of teams, they overthink, they get into their heads, right, of thinking, you know, this is a team that's far superior to us, and they start to choke and crumble under the pressure. As Gilly mentioned, this is a team that's extremely confident, so they said, let's just play our game. And as I mentioned, they're looking at those replays and saying, cool, the series that we have potential against is BTG and Tempo, sorry, not Tempo Storm.
Freedom.
Team Freedom, right?
Yep.
So I'm thinking NA. So let's see how we can really improve from that and go to these next series.
Yeah, I feel like the performance we saw...
I see you looking at me. I'm like, he just wants to say an NA LOL joke. I know, I've already butchered myself.
No. I was just like, NA, those teams are all the same.
I feel like...
Same level.
I want to bring some seriousness back to the desk for a second. I feel like what we saw out of them, of course, it really reminds me of what we saw out of Tempo Storm losing their match against CE yesterday.
Right,
They didn't look very weak, particularly in the matchup, and it's certainly a case where we could see an upset later on in the group for them.
Well, let's check in with the bracket for Group B that's occurred so far, with Fnatic taking that 2-0 victory over Darksided. Unfortunately for Darksided, they fall down to the lower bracket. They have one more shot at redemption later on. Next up, Team Freedom is going to go on against Beyond the Game as we continue.
Don't do that.
No? You did that trigger
I mean, we've all been to a bunch of Chinese WCGs.
Exactly. we have attended a few WCGs. I know that song. I know that reference. Don't do that to me, please.
I'm just hoping.
I beg you.
I'm hoping the 10 people that got that out there appreciate it.
I personally loved it.
Yesterday,
You do you, man.
Yeah.
I talked to Dignitas yesterday. They had no idea what I was talking about. I was just like, okay,
Because they're all 15 years old. Anyway, sorry, go on.
10 years.
Yeah.
And I was just like, look it up right now. And they actually, Baker was like, I think I know that now that I hear it. So yeah, it was...
I almost saved that for when
Memories.
Grubby was up here, but I decided, nah, I'm just going to go with it. So, we have Beyond the Game going up against Team Freedom here. Let's start, of course, here with Team Freedom. Obviously, them coming off the back of what we consider to be, I want to say, Western Clash success, because they looked actually strong, or as the strongest representative from North America, going up against the European teams there, and did well in Phase 2.
I actually think there's a lot to talk about the team. It was really interesting because, as you said, at the Western Clash, they presented themselves really well for them having their first offline experience there and going up against opponents on an international stage. They themselves didn't really feel like they performed well. And I have to admit that after the event, I was just like, okay, these guys are looking awesome. I want to see them in the actual Phase 2.
Right.
And then they started playing. They lost their first match. And in my head, I was like immediately like, yeah, okay, they did well one event and now they're down. But they actually just pulled through. They look fantastic right now, and I think they are one of the big two North American hopes at this point.
And to further that point even further, they said that they think they're the strongest team alongside Roll20 that have ever come to an international event, right? So to have that kind of confidence off the bat, we've seen confidence from NA teams in the past, and we've seen the performance on the day, either in groups or actually in the stages, and we think, is it that fake confidence, which is a case of our mentality is there, but our performance doesn't really represent or replicate that. But they're saying, you know, top 4 is our goal. We think that we have a chance. Our group is good. And there is a potential for us to go to Blizzcon and prove people wrong and build the success that we had from the Western Clash.
Yeah, I feel like when you have a breakout performance, like most people would consider that performance of the Western Clash like a really big breakout for this team. Their first big LAN, they have this great performance, and their response saying, we didn't really think we did as well as we could have. We didn't even live up to our potential. I think that speaks a lot to where this team could potentially go.
Yeah, who knows what could have happened if they'd have won that base race against Liquid at the Western Clash. It was just a minor thing, and then from there, who knows. Let's shift our gears and focus on Beyond the Game here, who, it is no secret, unfortunately for them, they have come in with 2 of their members, and they have 3 of their other members from other teams in China. So we don't really know what to expect from this team, Calder.
The interesting thing is that they were described as a Chinese pickup team.
Yeah.
The problem is that it feels like it's the story that it repeats itself at every single international event, that you have teams in China that come in with 1 or 2 subs. In this case, we now have 3. But they always are a threat. First of all, it's very difficult to research for them because they literally haven't really played in this formation any video material that you can gauge. And at the same time, we know that Chinese players are, first of all, mechanically skilled and also very aggressive. So you never know what you're up against. It makes them very difficult to evaluate on which level of performance you're going to encounter.
I mean, we're talking about a team here that when we met them for the first time, as we interviewed all the teams, of course, they had only played together as a 5-man for about 5 days of time. They've had about 3 days since then as well. So maybe like we're looking at just over a week of time to practice and train together. And they have players from not all the top Chinese teams as well. They've got, players from like Hot Lady, for example. 365 is actually like kind of a part-time pro gamer, part-time caster in China. So I think that's a really cool storyline to follow. But oftentimes we have these visa problems. Sometimes it looks like we see like SPT or eStar looks like a Chinese all-star team. But in this case, not so much. So I think there's a high chance this team is going to struggle in this group just simply because of both the problems in terms of team synergy and the problems of mechanical skill that is in this 5-man.
I mean, the thing that I'm really excited about is the fact that they've said flat out that we're going to play aggressively like the Chinese region does, with nothing to lose but everything to gain. The thing that really upset me about C is they said the exact same, but then they tried to transition into a sort of more macro-heavy performance. You said that's not your strength. You said it yourself. That's not our strength. We build for team fights to make up for the weaknesses in other areas. So in a case like this where they literally have nothing to lose, that is that big wild card. A lot of people are writing them off, but I'm interested to see how they come out game number 1.
Let's find out which battleground we're going to for game 1 here between these 2 teams, and it will be Battlefield of Eternity for Team Freedom. What are we making of it, Wolf? I'm going to start with you.
I think Battlefield of Eternity, a really exciting map for these two. I do like, watching Chinese teams play this map. They play a really similar style to the Korean style. Usually it's very objective-based. They'll try to fight to get the objective. They don't lane a lot. They don't try to soak for extra experience. So does it favor China here? No, but I'm excited to see how BTG Beyond the Gaming kind of uses their own style on this map.
But it kind of feels that it plays into their cards since they say we want a team fight. So this is exactly the map where you can focus heavily on team fighting compared to big 3-lane maps. So I actually really like from their perspective that this is the first map here, but we have of course to remember that it is the map choice of Team Freedom. And I'm really excited about this match in general because the first one, we knew there was a clear favorite. And in this one, you can argue, yes, Team Freedom is the favorite to head into it because of the problems that the Chinese teams have with their visas. But at the same time, it's still the wild card in the group.
Yeah, certainly
BTG believes that it's going to be a 50-50 chance for them to actually beat them. And just to correct everything out there, guys, just to keep you guys as updated as possible, Beyond the Game actually chose this map. So let's get into it. Game number 1 as we start things between Team Freedom and Beyond the Game.
That makes a lot of sense because of the team fight that they already announced they would search. And at this point, I mean, really fast start into the draft. This is way faster than anything we had so far from previous teams. Greymane banned out, the hero that of course excels as an all-rounder, is a great addition to any kind of aggressive playstyle, but also has huge amounts of immortal pressure. And we see Morales banned and Oriel taken. So highly focused on both sides on the supports.
Yeah, and we're going to see Murden picked up here early for BTG. That's going to give you a lot of control if you're behind in the immortal race, as we like to call it. Murden can give you a lot of space there, can come and kind of invade, slow down those attack speeds, and kind of delay. So we don't know what DPS they're going to run here yet, but the big question now is, does Freedom want to commit to the battery in this rotation? And the answer is no, they're going to save that for later.
And that was my point I was going to discuss, actually, was we don't really know exactly what Ego plays as that sub-player for that tanking role. So what does his Arsenal have available? I really love the adaptation here by Freedom already to say we know that Tyrael is typically a very Chinese meta pick, so let's deny that and we can run that sort of all-in competition to try and match the aggression that you want to show us.
Kerosene being banned out as well. We talked in our previous series already about how teams are starting to prioritize him a lot more. We expect him to really have a huge impact on the tournament here since he just adds that mobility. And with the draft that we already have for Freedom, you can see aggression. With Oriel, normally you would expect the second support to come in, and Kerosene gives you, first of all, of course, his healing abilities, his panic button, but at the same time also the on-target damage that you have. And if you jump in with Tyrael, with the Sanctification and Sonya, and it's exactly what you want to have to just blow a target up. So a good ban for Beyond the Game.
Yeah, it's going to give them a lot of potential to dive. You've got Sonya, a strong solo laner, can really control that lane. At least we'll see what matchup she ends up facing to, but it's very strong matchups most of the time in the meta right now for Sonya. Then you have this ability to, if you don't have good poke and you're losing the race, you can dive with this super hard, and you have so many ways to kind of collapse on a team that is winning that poke war.
Now, talking about the poke war, we see Tracer and Tacita, so again, Beyond the Game saying, hey, we want a team fight, we want to really bring the pain here. But we have not seen a lot of heroes that usually make a very early appearance on this map. Greymane was banned. Vala, on the other hand, with the traditional Q build, is normally a very high priority on Battlefield of Eternity for the immortal pressure. You can say the same about potential poke with Li Ming or even Lunara. And Team Freedom still needs some range damage, so those are heroes that could definitely play a role now for them in the last phase of the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking Lunara would have been the go-to as the sort of battery here on the side of Team Freedom, but with the Tracer being picked up, I'm a little bit deterred. I mean, yes, you can get the spell shield later on, but typically speaking, Chinese teams like to get that sort of early game advantage, run with it, and sort of choke you out from any potential to turn things around. We saw the Sanctification coming out yesterday from Wind, which was a little bit lackluster, and you could argue that could have been a difference in that series with C up against Tempo Storm, but Team Freedom would have picked this knowing the Chinese teams want this, and they'd have been looking to try and utilize that in their fashion. Lunara then can be perfected.
Gonna be Cassia. Okay. Well, you know, I feel like with the Tyrael pick here, okay, we're gonna see. All right, I'll just say with the Tyrael pick here, you can't really pick Malthael, who would be exactly who you would want in any other situation. Helps you mitigate some of what Sonya can do to you in the solo lane. Alarak, going to add a little bit of spice here to this one. The silences are going to be targeted, I think, mostly towards Lucio in these fights to try to deny that sound barrier so they can win the fight with Tracer, the Pulse Bomb coming through.
I'm actually really excited for this one. This is a cool draft to start things off with. Having Cassia as a battery for Oriel is something that we see a lot more often, I feel, on the North American and also the European side. So that's already going to be putting a nice touch on it. But Alarak is really a game changer. Depending on his performance, this game can be a win or a loss.
Yeah, I have to cement Caldwell's point completely. I feel as if the Alarak doesn't find their value. I believe we saw this once. I think it might have been Nomi up against Team Freedom or Expert back at the Western Clash, where they used the Alarak to try and counter the Medivh. Because if the Medivh gets the value, then, you know, the Tracer lives. In a situation like this, the same can apply, you know. If there is the Lucio to drop the Sound Barrier, null and voids the Tracer, and it becomes a dead pick.
You can also try to time, why am I forgetting the heroic ability for Alarak? Is his defensive ability. Counter-strike, yes. You have to time Counter-strike to land when the Aegis expires, because that target can actually avoid. So if you aim yourself at such an angle towards the Aegis after the Aegis is used, the target comes out of Aegis and hit by that Counter-strike. Sometimes you can just blow them up immediately. So it's kind of a cool thing they can use the Alarak for as well.
Yeah, I feel like, especially when you have Alarak, he can be a huge problem and a huge threat. And it's definitely going to take a bit of the pressure from away from Tracer, who will have more time roam, because Freedom will have to really watch out for Alarak so he doesn't land great combos in team fights later on. So it's always now all of a sudden 2 points that you have to keep in mind when you're approaching team fights in a 5 versus 5.
Final question, how pivotal do you think that the matchup between a Sonya and Alarak is here, and can the Alarak prevail in that situation?
I don't think so. I think Sonya's going to do really well in that lane matchup. Alarak's just going to have to play defensively. Might need to see some Tracer gank potential. So when Sonya wins the matchup, if you kind of let her push the lane in, then you can see the Tracer rotate up to try to get those picks. I think that's something that we'll see Beyond the Game try to make happen here.
The laning phase usually is pretty short here. So if you really focus on the team fights, which they said they want to do, I really like the pick for that. But in the lane itself, Sonya is just really tough to beat either way. But for what they said they want to show, I think the composition that BTG walked away with is really good.
Short thoughts?
I was just going to say, Q himself actually mentioned that, you know, the matchups, the solo matchups these days aren't really the biggest factor, because you can always just do swapping of lanes to try and counter that. As Kat already mentioned, a map like this, it's all focused on the objective, so the laning shouldn't be the biggest factor.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Time for game number 1 now as we get into Battlefield of Eternity. Team Freedom goes up against Beyond the Game.
Well, welcome in here to game number 1 against Team Freedom versus that of BTG. I'm here with Grubby. Grubby, contrasting styles in drafts this game.
Very much so, Jay-How. We spoke to Team Freedom, and they said because BTG is kind of almost like a pickup team with lots of different substitutes, they're expecting trademark Chinese aggression, and that means full balls to the wall, aggression, team fighting, and basically no dead moment. So I'm excited to see those styles square off, because we have a very defensive comp.
Very
from Team Freedom.
Very defensive versus very offensive. So without further ado, let's actually hop into game number 1 here, as we will have Team Freedom trying to secure that spot in the upper bracket finals here. We're going to see if they can do that against BTG, who, of course, coming in with the subs. We'll see how it plays out.
And I'm thinking here, what spirit must you possess to, like, bam, insta snap pick Alarak in that final moment there in that draft? It didn't even take a full second.
You know what I always say, Grubby? If you're confident on a hero and you're in a draft, whether it's Hero League, unranked, wherever you're at, you snap block that hero, you let the other team know you mean business. I always say that. You let them know you mean business when you snap block a hero.
Lay down that mental pressure. Alarak's sadism. Will it prevail this game or will it not? Beyond the game, full aggro, Team Freedom, very defensive composition here. What with Tyrion's shields, Cassia's blind, Ariel's healing, Lucio's healing, and we even saw in draft there was an opportunity to pick Vala with Monster Hunter to get that damage on the Immortal. But instead, Team Freedom elected for Cassia. Blinds, very effective against Tassadar and Tracer in particular. And so it is really not that much about that race. This map used to be played like an F1 race. Just go the fastest, you on your Immortal, we on our Immortal, and that's it. But now it's fully evolving into that team fight and into that one lane, and sometimes a little bit of bullying on that one-on-one lane, like already alluded to. And that's why we see Rhaegar and Alarak top. They are certainly a match for a single Sonya.
Yeah, single Sonya is going to struggle. We'll keep an eye on this top lane in particular, but you know, in the bottom, your number one response when you see that is simply that, what can this composition do? A Tracer doesn't necessarily, if she has single target damage early on, obviously she can stack her pulse bomb, try and get some pressure, but outside of that, you've got this aggressive push, and you don't really have the tools to deal with the defense.
Oh, definitely. Some of the best D-pushers are heroes that do not sit very well in the current meta. For example, Gul'dan, with his corruption and his Fell Flame, Kel'Thas with the Flame Strike and the Chain Bomb, but they don't do that well against these hyper-mobile, hyper-aggressive compositions with good sustain. So if you don't have them and you've just got Tracer here, you're gonna lose towers. But Beyond the Game fully accepts this, and they say we'd rather play a strategical warfare and put 2 members in the top, rather than going blow for blow in both lanes. And they've actually taken down 2 towers, as opposed to Team Freedom's only 1 tower so far.
And it all goes to that Lightning Bond at level 1. You talked about, you know, the talents that we can potentially see when it does come to the team fighting. Does really well when you're sieging. It does really well in the race for the Immortal. And speaking of the Immortal, we've got our first one right now.
Very advantageous position here for Team Freedom. They have their 4-man, and the Red Immortal spawns next to them. Gets them a little bit of damage done, but they don't want to go full 4v4. And why? Alarak is one of the best defenders at the Immortal phase. Pull people into those concentric stun circles, and they are set up for a nice and easy takedown.
We learned yesterday, it's all about the geometry, right? The circles. But, you know, it's a very interesting pick there, because it was kind of that last pick. You think about Cassia, she's got the shorter auto attack range, shorter than most ranged heroes. Lucio has to be within the general vicinity to make sure and get those AoE heals. So there is a lot of potential, as you just alluded to, the fact that you could walk into that 4-man feeling confident. Alarak will change your mind real quick.
So that's going to have to be the game plan here for Beyond the Game. Beyond the Game, to defend on their own Immortal whenever Team Freedom makes the initiative to attack it. We see that kind of here. This downwards momentum, Team Freedom funneling into this area. Now Alarak has to wait till the next stun. There we go. Is he going to push someone in? And fails to hit the Tyrael.
He's trying. I mean, you're not going to have 100% accuracy, that's for sure. But when it lands, you'll know it. I mean, you always know when you get caught in that, it's like, all right, something bad just happened. It's very obvious right there. You see kind of the retreat. And we've seen this back and forth approach to where it's like, all right, we give up a little, the threat's there, we fall back a little bit, and then Team Freedom will slowly re-engage. And speaking of re-engaging, very nice detainment strike there.
Good job there, Collusion, hitting the 365, the Rhaegar here. A lot of back and forthing here on the Immortals as teams are clamoring for an advantageous position. In the meantime, Team Freedom has just done ever so slightly better on the laning in the north and south, and this is giving them a little bit of experience.
Trying to soak as much as they can. Even if you lose the first Immortal, obviously you can find ways to play around it. You know, we've seen kind of like these dive-style competitions in North America to try and fight behind that. And speaking of a fight, we have them re-engaging here, trying to get it off to the halftime show. There's the silence. The pulse bomb's going to be on at Nasmus, and a heal's going to bring you back up, but he was just mere pixels away on that health bar from death.
Plate of the Whale on Cassia there. And that bonus regeneration, just a few points as long as she remains on the move with an eventual extra 10% maximum HP. In order to do this, she needs to get hit by auto attacks while moving. And it's about the amount of auto attacks. So look at Tracer and Tassadar. That is going to be a very easy quest to complete. And for that, he gives up the lifesteal from Ring of the Leech. But there's plenty of healing on his side.
This is one of those moments where when you research certain teams, they have a shield and it's an early immortal. They'll sometimes push with it, sometimes they won't. A team like Team Expert comes to mind is that they'll see an opportunity like this, they'll push another lane. But this is what Freedom does. They want to try and take advantage of their push. Yes, it's not a healthy shield. Yes, it's not the top tier. It's not late game where the immortal comes in. But they look for opportunities. They have a strong early game composition. They're going to see what they can do as Sonya's split bottom. But the top immortal getting, I think, a bit more value than I would have anticipated.
We see these kind of compositions from BTG before, where it is Tracer Tassadar, 2 warriors, and a second support, where Tracer is the solo assassin. So we know that this can work. We see this on Tomb of the Spider Queen by many different teams. And in this case, the second warrior role is embodied by Alarak. And still it feels like Beyond the Game has difficulty getting a kill. Here we go with the pulse round on Ariel.
Ariel coming in there. That's, again, the Pulse Bomb is such a huge threat. Post level 10, it'll be a little bit easier. You've got the Sound Barrier, you've got the Crystal Aegis, you potentially have the Sanctification. So you have a lot of tools to deal with that. But more importantly, we have the level 7 coming in from Muradin. That heavy impact is just every time you have the engage, the threat is very much there. Obviously, Alarak, again, trying to look for that. You talked about questing talents earlier. His questing talents, he's barely touched them at this point. And it's a very difficult thing for Alarak against this composition that is trying to avoid the heavy engages.
Yeah, very much. I mean, Alarak here needs to hit his silences. He needs to hit his lightning. And he's done a pretty good job of stacking up his lightning quest. The only thing he hasn't been able to do yet is to get 3 heroes with 1 center lightning. And this gives him back 10% sadism, which is PvP spell damage. But for the rest, he already has the slow that is attached to the lightning. He's got the range as well. So in terms of solo play, Alarak has been doing a good job. Now let's see what they can do with that. It's a 0 takedown game so far. The next Immortal will be spawning shortly.
It's going to light up, Grubby. I can feel it. This next Immortal phase, both teams prioritizing their Shaman camp. Somebody's going to try and hit that 10th spike. When that 10th spike hits, somebody's going in. You've got a very aggressive approach that you can take on the side of Team Freedom. And on the other side, for Beyond the Game, they've already drafted into that team fighting. So they're going to be more than willing, especially once they hit 10, to definitely take that team fight.
Let's see how that will envelop. Team Freedom has a lot of protection buttons. And they find an Alarak. Cleanse hits. Alarak telekinesis himself away, gets away. Good job Beyond the Game with the disengage. That's a 4 versus 5. Anytime you can stay alive in those, you are getting ahead actively because you've got a member in the other lane. Tassadar doing cleanup duty in the bottom lane.
He's doing cleanup duty, and he's got to do it quick. They're looking for the re-engage. Level 10, dangerously close, and we've got ST. He's going to be our first casualty of the game as Alarak goes down, pushing it even closer to level 10. They'll be able to clean up this wave. They'll be scant inches away from that level 10, and you got to imagine they're going to try and take that advantage because the Immortal on the enemy side of the map, easy engage.
And this would have been a difficult point to push into with Alarak alive. But Team Freedom expertly punishes Beyond the Game's risky rotation through the middle point rather than from the right side. They punish and they find a wild Alarak. Muradin, one of the major mainstays in the first 2 days here of HGC, is already finding a very high participation rate with a 70% win rate. He went, I believe, 6-3 on day 1 or 5-3. He's continuing to see more and more play.
Not too shabby. We have level 10 picked up by Beyond the Game as the halftime show is kicked off by Team Freedom. They're looking to be somewhat defensive at the moment, maybe looking for that fight against Sanctification is a tool they can use to dive in, get the stun, the cleanse forced out onto Muradin. They're going to go ahead and disengage as ST. Missing that, but Zagrog and team, they're going in right now, Grubby. They're looking for a fight. The blind goes down, and Beyond the Game wisely retreats.
You see all these spells, all these fireworks, and Team Freedom is looking at full health bars on their own side. They have so much layers of protection, and they're using it well. And they didn't really... Hold that thought. Alarak comes in with the silence. Sanctification!
The sound barrier's out as well. That stun follow-up there onto that stun circle. Now the Immortal trying to put down that AoE. Ancestral has been used on SD. Ball Lightning on the backside going as well. Crystal Aegis in response here is going to keep them alive, and now they've got their attention turned focused onto Tracer. Nice Poison Spear, and they're looking for more.
Ball Lightning going around like a hot potato. as they're juggling that one and taking so much damage. Tracer finds herself alone and will get taken out. And now an Immortal with 90% shields is going to be a significant threat that represents potentially even keep damage.
The recognition there by Tyrael coming in. He's like, oh wow, that looks like a bad scenario. Zugrug, he saw the stun. The Stormbolt came out from Murden, locked him right onto it, same as they were trying to do on the previous one. Got the stun from the Immortal, the follow-up, and that was just very, very good recognition on the side of Team Freedom, and that's warranted them another Immortal.
Very clean play there. Cassia was down to 10% life or less. Big move in on Ariel and will get taken out. Nice move by Beyond the Game, but they're taking massive damage in return. Charge strike, Cassia going ham. Dansky finds another victim, and it is 5 versus 3. Now with a full HP Immortal still going on the keep. Pulse rounds on Sonya, barely kept alive. Thank you, Tyrael, with the Righteousness Shield.
This is one of those moments where it's almost worth it to consider taking a risk, but without Ariel here, without Sanctification, they don't want to go. Sometimes you can see teams with a somewhat healthy Immortal try and get some early core damage. You had the numbers advantage. Short death timers are going to play it safe. They've got themselves a keep, Grubby. That's a pretty big bonus here on Battlefield of Eternity.
Yeah, that's pretty huge. And that means that Tassadar is going to be relegated to wave clear duty more and more as the game goes on. And that really limits the style here for Beyond the Game, what they can use to employ to try and wrestle back map control. The light side here for Alarak is he completed his lightning quest. 10% sadism granted back again.
You brought up something I think that almost kind of showed, although, wait a minute, we've got Cure going in here. He's going to miss the spear. They've got eyes on ST, who's trying to get out of there. The counter-strike goes out, doesn't hit anybody. The blind's going to be in there. The pulse bomb does go out. Sanctification is going to save as Alarak gets punished again. But Sonya picking up Spell Shield, as you said in the previous fight, the pulse bomb's going to be there. They now have so many tools to deal with that burst-style damage between Alarak and between Tracer and the pulse bomb. So things for Team Freedom, talent-wise, and in particular this game, looking pretty good.
Yeah, that was very well protected there. Sonya kept alive. Cure says thank you. But who should he thank? Should he thank Tyrael or Lucio here? Because devil's advocate here, the cynic in me, right? We've got Team Freedom here against Beyond the Game, and they are looking pretty damn good so far. But in order to, make it all the way, you don't want to overlap those heroics too much. So they need to get that communication right, and this is a good opportunity to do so.
I talked to Aether this morning. He said, look, if we have any issues with our macro, obviously joking. He said, if we have any issues with our macro game or something goes on, blame it on Nasmus's accent.
What's that?
He's French Canadian. He said, blame it on his accent. I was like, it was a joke. He's like, look, if you get a chance, throw it out there if that happens. So maybe some communication. But as you said, this team, obviously they're making sure they're very well protected, sometimes abundantly so. And now we've got 13 picked up for Beyond the Game. They might have to protect themselves a little bit more here.
Sure, trying to find an angle. Doesn't want to go in by himself, though. Crystal Aegis immediately. Slightly premature. It is a fairly low cooldown, and there are other buttons. Sound Barrier and Sanct. Overly safe is still safe. So Team Freedom plays it like that. They will take down the camp at the top, and they know the bottom bruiser is still available. Now, are they giving a little bit too much of the dance floor away to Beyond the Game here, JR?
I actually agree that they are right now. They have the catapults pushing. They knew that they could slow play this. They don't necessarily have to give it up with the spear going in. And Ego taking so much damage is forced on the retreat. The halftime show was kicked off. They have the catapults. They have the Shaman Camp pushing bottom. But now this could be a potential race, and Beyond the Game has their eyes set on a defensive posture for the moment, waiting for Tassadar to rejoin the fight.
It was such a dilemma for Tassadar. He kept moving left and right, left and right. Do I defend the core? Do I help my team? But he has made a decision. He's going to help the team, or he will die trying. And here we go. Tassadar from the side with the shields on Tracer.
Blinds are coming in abundantly. Cure dodging the silence there, but there's the stun, there's the engage, the Sanctification's down, Ball Lightning out in return, and it is doing so much damage on that backside, forcing Beyond the Game once more to retreat. Every time these big heroics come out, Grubby, it is just game-changing in the middle of these fights, but we've got another Crystal Aegis.
And there we have the Crystal Aegis popping. Everyone is healthy for Team Freedom, and with Righteous Fury, they are chasing down the members of Beyond the Game. Pursue and engage is the call, and they are certainly doing so. Tracer goes down as well. Murden has already fallen.
Oh, they're coming in for the flank. They're coming in for the flank. I don't know if Poison Spear is back up yet, but they got their eyes set on Rhaegar, who knows he's all but dead here. And Molly also in a very bad spot. That's going to be 3 members down. Make it 4 here momentarily as Tyrael and Lucio finish the job. And right now, we've got ourselves a 3-level lead. Grubby, this maybe getting close to ending here.
I think it might, Jayhow. We've got a pretty healthy Immortal, still in a 5 versus 3 situation, soon to be. Reinforcements again from beyond the game, as the death timers are pretty short on account of their low hero levels. But the Immortal still has range. It's probably going to do damage to the core here. The question is, will the core remain at 0% or 17? 50-50, it's either one of those.
Well, right now you said there's a little bit of a shield left, which means he stays in that ranged form. And against the composition like Tracer and Alarak, it's very difficult. The counter-strike going out again. ST taking a lot of damage. Ego trying to thwart this off. The shields are now down on the core, and it is falling, Grubby.
And it does look like it will be 0%. Here we've got Team Freedom going for the kill. 9-1 in takedowns, and they win with that 3-level lead. A very clean first victory. Their layers of protection were more than enough to prevent the aggression from finding too many victims. Beyond the game loses their first.
It just seemed like they were all in. And you got that burst style composition of Alarak and Tracer. If one of those goes through, maybe. If both of them go through, great. If neither of them go through, because there's so many defensive heroics and so much protection, you're going to have a tough day trying to finish and engage in those team fights.
Exactly. If there's one thing that you do not pick Alarak for, it's to put out a nice amount of damage over the course of 10-20 seconds. It's really about that moment of telekinesis, Discord strike, silence. You need a kill in that time.
You definitely need a kill, and I think there's a few other people at the desk that probably have a few thoughts of their own on what was needed that game. We're going to send it back over to Colaris at the the analyst concave.
You got there. Well done, Jayhow. I appreciate that there. That's right, the analysis concave. We are back, and for Team Freedom, that looked pretty straightforward. Very strong defensive style, Skimmy.
Yeah, I mean, they had the sustain element for those skirmishes pre-10 especially. You tried to see them fight over camps or even just fights around that middle area, and they just couldn't survive. As they mentioned on the desk right there, they needed to find some kills. We discussed Alarak being the big factor. He wasn't able to find the silence. He wasn't able to find the counter-strike for that one shot. And every time Sank or Soundbearer was available, it found the value, and it always swung the fight for Team Freedom to carry on.
I mean, I think this game is really self-explanatory. There's not much to say about it. They couldn't get those picks. They were also playing a little bit passive at times. I feel like there were moments where an Aegis wore off and Sank wasn't available, and they just moved towards it, then moved away. And I feel like you could really feel that lack of synergy, that lack of, okay, we haven't played with this roster for a year. In fact, we haven't played with this roster for more than just a week. And I think calls were late, and there were not enough punish plays when there were very small windows, because with this comp, like you said, so much protection, so much, you got the Sank, the barrier. When there were tiny windows, they couldn't identify those, they couldn't react quickly enough.
It was really tough for BDG, I feel, to get any control of the game, because Freedom did an excellent job just running with the momentum. They get a talent lead and they exploit it. They take camps away from their opponent, force fights, stagger deaths. It was really well executed. And even in the end fight, we could see that at the beginning there was an attempt of BDG to at least make the play for the Immortal, but then the Immortal is claimed thanks to Sanctification and the Sound Bearer being used. And BDG is still forced into a fight that they don't really want, because they know if they don't take the fight, they're going to lose anyways. And in the fight, they lose 4 heroes, and it was just very clean from Team Freedom overall.
Yeah, you mentioned, you know, this roster's only really been together for a week, practicing together for a week, and we have to give them the benefit of the doubt for that, because, you know, those visa issues are a thing. But it did feel like, if you look at the Chinese, HGC China Phase 2 kind of pools of heroes that they're going to be going on, putting someone like Infinity on Tracer, which he didn't play at all through Phase 2, is a very bold statement to say, okay, it's your time to shine. Here is the ball, and run with it. Very difficult.
I mean, we were discussing on the desk here as the game was going on, saying, like, how many pulse bombs actually went off, how much value was actually found, right? And we said this comp has to find burst. The best chance actually had was when one Punisher was achieved in the bottom lane, Immortal in the bot lane for that keep aggression with Tempo. I keep saying Tempo. Team Freedom went for that push. They go for the keep. And, yeah, they went for that one shot with the Alarak. They get the kill, but it's not going to be enough. The keep still falls on down. They can't defend. If you've got a burst comp, you need to burst somebody. And if the tools are there to respond and they find the value, then you start scratching your head. Where do we go for this next game?
And Team Freedom anticipated it, and they knew the aggression was coming. A great defensive comp to get things going in game number 1. And we're going to hear from our sponsors in just a second. And when we're back, it's game number 2.
The 2017 Heroes Global Championship Finals are brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Thank you very much to our lovely sponsors joining us here for the HGC 2017 Finals. Of course, game number 2 on the horizon now between these two teams. Does Tempo... Oh,
You've got me. The curse
it's
of the
all
British.
his fault, not
Yeah,
me.
blame me.
Right, anyway. Does Team Freedom
We're out of here.
have anything to worry about going into this next game? Judging from what we saw there.
I think one thing I noticed a lot, and we were talking about this on the desk during the game, is the stacking of the sound barriers and the sanctifications. Obviously, you have two great tools, and in that game itself, if you hit one or out of the other, or both at the same time, it didn't matter because you won the fight. But I feel like going into a fight where you're using a composition like this against more well-rounded damage, a more well-rounded team comp, got to be a little bit careful about that. But otherwise, I mean, I think they had a good strategy. They played against the Chinese strengths. They took a lot of those tools away from BDG, and they played a solid strategy overall.
Well, we can take a look at the second battleground to start things off, and then I can get back to you guys in a moment. Let's find out where we're going. It will be Team Freedom's choice, going to Cursed Hollow, gentlemen.
I personally really think it's going to be extremely rough for BDG to make an impact here, and the reason for me is that when we talked about Team Freedom coming to the Western Clash, they said that one of the things that they learned in their boot camps in Europe is to play different playstyles. But even back then, they felt that they had one strategy, one style, and something that they executed. And since then, they just completely broadened their approach. And right now, they can play the macro game, and they can play the team fights. And we've just seen BTG in a game where their self-proclaimed strength did not work out in the slightest. The synergy for team fighting just wasn't there. So if they from themselves say, hey, this is our strength, this is what we are trying to do, and then you see it being a little bit lackluster, I don't really know what their approach is going to be to take Team Freedom down. So I think overall, judging from game number 1, small sample size, granted, Team Freedom has a very good shot at closing this out with the 2-0.
And I mean, what better way for us to gauge exactly where Team Freedom are at in terms of that ability to be more broad in their approach rather than one trick, one style. Going to Cursed Hollow, one of the most macro-intensive maps. This will give us a bit of a glimpse into how strong they are in that region and how Beyond the Game are going to respond. I'm personally thinking Beyond the Game need to sort of up their priority for that Tyrael. It seems to be a big component of their region. You saw how much it worked against them. But apart from that, execution really was the name of the game. Team Freedom on the day had the better comp and the better ability to be decisive, find the kills, and close things out on Battlefield.
I think the X factor for Beyond the Game going to this map to try to control the macro is going to be the solo lane. We saw the Alarak was really just, obviously as Kaldor was mentioning as we went to the last draft, you don't really talk about the solo lane too much in Battlefield of Eternity. It's not as big of a factor as it is on larger maps like Dragonshire, for example, which is banned out. So I think what they bring to the table in terms of the solo lane will kind of set the pace, and then they could use that tool to set up those fights and go towards their style.
I mean, talking about this solo lane really working out for them, we already said that Alarak into the Sonya is going to struggle, and they acknowledged that to a point where they said, we can't even solo lane on this map, we need to make it a 2-3 split, so they adapted already in their playstyle here. But I agree with you that in the setup, the X factor, as you called it, is something that where they have to show, okay, what are they doing here? And we have already the Haka now taken, so that gives us a global. So from the get-go, it's a bit more heavy on gank potential and on side soaks through a global.
Yeah, and it's the solo laner as well. So not only are they going to try to use this to put pressure on the lane, we talked about how the solo lane would probably lead to what sort of macro Beyond the Game might lend themselves to here. And this is going to be that global factor, and this will give them extra pushing power. And they won't be fighting down in experience necessarily like they did in the previous set.
So this is currently already looking like very much like the last patch that we had, the high priority on ETC after the Haka was drafted, so that you have a counter to the Haka later on if you want to go into stage dive. So at this point, you're flexible enough in the draft that you can get a second tank at the front line if you choose to do so. That allows you to go into Mosh Pit. Or you can simply just say ETC is going to run it. You have Brightwing for global as well. So there's a very flexible opening here for Team Freedom that I like actually a lot.
And this is Team Freedom saying, you know, what they discussed during their interview about, you know, we want to focus on mobility. We want heroes to have the ability to get from A to B in a heartbeat, right? So Brightwing, you can phase shift in, as you touched on before. Stage dive, always a threat to try and run against a composition which might be designed to interrupt a mosh pit. But the response from BTG, they go for the Rhaegar once again. They pick up the Greyman, a staple in their region as well. Not really revealing too much at this stage, and still the question is, Tyrael, not there.
Yeah. Looking at potentially a Muradin ban, kind of an unusual, and we saw obviously Muradin picked up in that last set early with the Rhaegar, but towards the Genji now. So double DPS, something that we have seen in China, and it is slowly on the rise. I think we've seen 4 games of solo support now in this group stage. So I guess it's not a crazy ban. It does offer them, I think, a little bit less. It does take away a big threat in terms of dive for BDG here.
Okay, so Anna, first of all, banned out here. Now, one of the things that we've talked a lot about Tempo Storm, but Team Freedom also acknowledges the strength is, of course, Malfield compositions. We've been talking about this just yesterday, and especially with Anna, that can definitely be a huge threat. And with Brightwing currently chosen, you can expect a double support on the side of Team Freedom. But I agree with Skimmy here and also with Wolf that I would really like to see where Tyrael now comes into play here. Because you can still make a strong argument for Team Freedom playing towards Tyrael and trying to use an ETC mosh pit potentially even with Sanctification, maybe just a stage dive. But on the other hand, you have already Greymane and Rhaegar with a lot of potential to use Tyrael on Cursed Hollow, his best map, and just try and dive deep.
So, I mean, with Trasher that are locked in there between the Tracer and the Test, as I've coined it, I love it. So frustrating to go up against, so fun to play with, as many have said in this region. And beyond the game, I mean, now the Tyrael just becomes that much more attractive.
Yeah, it feels like the shoe's on the other foot in this case, right? Yeah. What they use to try to kill Freedom now will be on the game. Take that same tool to try to defend it. I mean, they could potentially take literally Lucio here into the Tyrael. That's a strong option. Muradin, though, is, I think, the more attractive option, but what does Muradin really offer you against Task Tracer? You're not going to be hitting very many Dwarf Tosses onto a Tracer. That's pretty unrealistic. Shutting down the ETC is something you can do with those Storm Bolts, but I agree. I'm leaning towards that Tyrael. I think Lucio's great for the map. You've already got good camp control with Rhaegar and Greymane, but they're going to actually completely change up. They're going to go to this solo support style here, Muradin at Falstad, similar to what we saw from Fnatic in the previous set.
Is there an Illidan or a Sonya in our future here for Team Freedom? Or what do you think?
I mean, Sonya, I could definitely see that you're trying to go for her. Illidan, I personally don't really feel it at this point. I would prefer... You can play the Illidan. I personally would prefer something along the lines of a Sonya. Again, with the North American teams, we've oftentimes seen different priorities into Malfield, for example. But I just want to talk about that Falstad a bit. I actually don't expect him to come in here. We already had the Global. And you, of course, have Gust that you can use as a disengage tool as well. But into the Tracer, that's definitely an interesting play, especially since we're only having a single support here. So with good control, and Freedom definitely has that, I think Tracer can put a clinic onto the backline of BTG.
Certainly, I think it feels gimmicky. It almost feels like it's one reason to grab it. You didn't grab the Tyrael, you want more boss control. You can use the Gust to help control that on this two-boss map, but I'd love to see that Malthel pick you were talking about, the North American favorite here. You crush the matchup against the Haka, but it's going to be Zera. I think this is a response to the solo support here, and you've got two hyper-mobile heroes with Tracer, Zeratul to get into that backline, and it's pretty scary for BTG.
He didn't even cross my mind there, but he's perfect. Like, it's fantastic. You already have Tracer, who was a huge threat towards Falstad. Now you have a Zeratul as well. I mean, it just screams one-shot. If you call your target and you go in, you have heavy mobility, you can one-shot backline heroes quite easily here. And of course, then you also have later on a Void Prison that you can use too. So the setup for... I love what Freedom does.
I was going to say, you're just going to overwhelm them with pressure. You've already got the Tracer in your face, trying to take down that one key target, Pulse Bomb or not. But then if you've got Zeratul on top as well, you've got two Assassins coming in at you, and you're thinking, well, do I have to burn the Gust in a situation like this? It's not too desirable. Or maybe the Gust doesn't even get used right, so that boss control on a map like Cursed Hollow off the table.
Yeah, I feel like Falstad's not really going to be doing a whole lot of pushing by himself. It's just too risky. Right. I mean, if he is, he's not pushing very far, right? Because the threat of the Tracer and the Zeratul is there. The callouts as to where those heroes are going to have to be really good so that the Falstad can actually push far to get value on this map.
There's also another element. A lot of the stuff that we talked about is post-10. So what happens after level 10 in the mid-game? But just think about the early game here. You have a Brightwing and you have Zeratul. So Zeratul can literally roam, go into any kind of lane on the solo, calls Brightwing to TP in when he starts blinking, and all of a sudden you turn it into a 1 versus 3 situation where you get your kills. So the gank potential with this is insane.
I mean, let's throw our minds back to the set that happened last night, and we saw Cursed Hollow as well. It was a Tracer on the side of CE. They went for the invade. I mean, their camp clear wasn't the best. You look on the side of BTG, they've got the Rhaegar, they've got the Greymane, your go-to heroes full of likes of like a Giant Camp or a Knight Camp. You look at Team Freedom, it's not really about their mercenary control, it's all about the global, the mobility. So, I mean, if somebody like the Zeratul does spot somebody out, expect the team just to collapse on that and get the kills.
So Team Freedom looking to bring the aggression to be on the game here. Make sure to vote at home as who you think is going to win with the hashtags, be it Team Freedom, be it Beyond the Game as well, as we're almost ready to go into game at number 2. At the moment, Team Freedom winning out in the HGC universe. What are our guys thinking? Are we thinking Team Freedom is going to be able to take this all the way?
Quite easily.
With this draft, I'm looking at like 90%. I think they take it.
Skimmy, final thought?
I'm thinking if BDG get a strong early game, it could go up a little bit higher, but otherwise I feel like Team Freedom got this one in the bag.
All right, thank you very much, gents, as we now head over to our commentary team once again for game number 2.
Well, Grubby, as Wolf pointed out, it seems like the shoe is on the other foot. The drafts kind of flip-flopped in terms of style. We've got very contrasting styles, except it seems like the teams changed names.
Yeah, Tassadar Tracer now on the left side, fighting for freedom, not going beyond the game. And it looks like a good draft, but like you just pointed out, a little bit on the lower wave clear here for Team Freedom, so they will need to coordinate well, rotate well, in order to manipulate the map positively.
It'll definitely be interesting to see. We don't get to see a whole lot of Zeratul these days. We'll see how it plays out as we are ready here for game number 2 between Team Freedom and BTG. And Team Freedom, they're going to try and take this 2-0. They want to get an early rest and try and finish it out here today and get their spot to Blizzcon. We're going to see what they can do here in game number 2.
There'll be plenty of games to watch after that if they can indeed achieve that early rest. But whoever wins this match will go up against Fnatic. A challenge of epic proportions. Will it be Freedom or Beyond the Game? We've got the boys of Team Freedom here on the left. Dainsky on Tassadar, Zagrag on ETC, Cure on Zeratul, Kill Illusion on Brightwing, and Nazmaz on Tracer.
It's going to be a fun game as we'll see what Beyond the Game can do. Going into that solo support style as Infinity is going to be on Greymane. ST on the Dahaka. Molly going to be on the surprise Falstad pick for me. 365 on the Rhaegar. And rounding it out will be Ego one more time on the Murden.
Zeratul has long been a recurring mainstay in big international Heroes of the Storm tournaments, but he hasn't seen as much play. His prevalence has suffered. Going up against double warrior, double support, as it is more difficult to find an angle, to find a weakness against such sturdy compositions. But now, with just one support, Rhaegar, Zeratul has made his way in again. And let's see what Cure can do with him.
I remember last year, Grubby, you talk about an international competition. I remember me and Dreadnought were doing some stats, you know, based on all the big events. And every time they showed up, there were 2 heroes, had the 2 single highest win rate at every single global tournament. Those 2 heroes were Abathur and Zeratul, both above like 75% win rate at global international events. As you said, the meta's changed a little bit, but he finds himself back here at one of the biggest globals of the year.
Yeah, I mean, even look at mid-season Brawl about 5 months ago, and we had the Abathur with the top win rate.
Oh, yeah.
Together with Chen, actually. Chen received a little bit of a nerf since then and doesn't see as much play. But
So Chen was confirmed OP.
Chen confirmed OP, needs another nerf. But yeah, Tyrael Zeratul always rise to prominence as locking down an entire team with Void Prison or making an entire team invincible are pretty good abilities. Zeratul is pretty hard to play though. His Void Prison range is short. He's squishy. He has to use the entire toolkit of mobility that he has with all those blinks, with that level 1 Vorpal Blade in order to make himself scarce when the opponent tries to lock him down.
I think right now they're holding the lanes, so to speak, and they're just kind of trading out. Rather casually, neither team has incredible siege potential with this setup, but it's always interesting for me when Zeratul players get to level 7 and they get that teleport off their W and they're able to just go in and kind of close that gap, save their E for something else, and really try and close the gap if needed. Plus combo slash after level 4, you can double up on that W at level 7, and it really like comes online as it like a scary threat. But again, solo support, I want to see what happens after the first tribute phase. Falstad, prime target to be ganked. Same for Rhaegar, things like that. With solo support, I want to see what Cure can do because he is a very deadly melee player here for Team Freedom.
And let's talk also about how team fights are going to be looking. You think of yourself, you style yourself to be that Tracer and Zeratul. Who are the primary attack targets on Beyond the Game? Rhaegar, if he gets caught, there are no buttons to protect him, save Stormbolt or Mighty Gust, something like that. But there are no like Crystal Aegis, Divine Shield. If Rhaegar gets attacked, he's in trouble. So 3-6-5's positioning is going to be of paramount importance. He's going to be the main target. But if Rhaegar is either locked down or not in position, Falstad dies so fast to a Zeratul or a Tracer as well. So there's plenty of targets here.
And you talked about that. Your sustained damage is basically nil. Zeratul's all burst. Tracer, she can kind of get in and out, but when it comes to her damage, it revolves around getting into melee range and then trying to get that W out and then the pulse bomb to try and get out. What happens when that doesn't work? What happens if you miss? That's what I want to see. What does Team Freedom have? What's their backup option in these team fights?
And that's going to be the key for Beyond the Game. Rebuff the initial onslaught, maybe with Mighty Gust, maybe with a Stormbolt, and then use the rather chunky warriors and Greymane's counterattack to make a comeback. In the meantime, Brightwing was pushing in one-on-one against Falstad, but it was unfair. Darkar came in as well, made it a 2-on-1, and down goes Collusion.
It was really interesting because we heard the phase shift in as we do see Rhaegar does fall here in this fight. They're trying to turn it, and they do. Cure goes down a 1-for-1 trade, 2-for-1 overall, but Zugra got to be careful here as he's taking quite a bit of damage. The Pulse Bomb trying to get the trade. Infinity's like, you know what? I'm pretty sure I'm going down. I'm taking you with me.
It was a firefight. Deadly casualties on either side. Tribute still uncontested here. No one has been able to get it yet. Dansky, oh, nice Blink Stormbolt.
Oh,
you know what?
He did that intentionally. It's like, dude, keep channeling, I got this. That's actually a really killer play there by Nazmas.
The bodyguard, Nazmas. I cry every time. Dansky didn't need to cancel, but he did, you know, and the Tribute continues to laugh in the face of danger. What a chaotic game so far. 2 versus 3 takedowns in favor of Beyond the Game.
In favor indeed. Brightwing has moved back to the top. The power slide in onto Ego, and Nazmus again trying to get that. He has his Pulse Bomb one more time. Zeratul's coming in. There it is, the level 7 online. He goes in. Infinity takes quite a bit of damage, but as you said, they need that deterrent, and there was a Stormbolt that Ego threw out to kind of thwart the attack.
I think Muradin has to hold his Stormbolt, unless he can use it aggressively and leading to a kill. He needs to save that for Zeratul. In comes Cure again, sharking from below. He goes for Muradin, actually landing that Seeker in the dark. A very delayed hitbox there on Ego. It looked like it was going to be missing. And finally, Collusion comes in. So does the Haka. Everyone is here. It's a 5-on-5 brawl.
Essence is out. It's healed up to Haka. The dimensional ship is out for Tassadar. We are 5.5 minutes in, and we finally get our first channel of the game. As again, it's all around that burst. If you don't get that kill, we saw Zeratul and Tracer both try and confirm kills. And when that doesn't go through, what do you have left after that? And it looked like Team Freedom right now didn't have a whole lot.
So we're level 9 apiece, and only 1 tribute was taken. Just rewind to the first best of 3 of the day here. Fnatic against Darksided, and by this time, about 2 tributes were taken already, with the third one almost on the third one pretty much spawning now by this XP. And it was Fnatic who was able to grab that one alongside a kill and a boss. But now a much slower pace of the objective. First, second tribute pretty much don't do anything. And everyone is going to be level 10 by the time that even the second tribute spawns.
Kirby, I want to get your opinion on this, because I'm sitting here thinking of when level 10 hits, like you've got a Tracer and a Zeratul who don't necessarily capitalize as much as, say, other heroes would off of a potential mosh pit. Would we be potentially seeing a double global style here with a potential stage dive?
You're quite right. Stage dive is taken. A little bit of extra damage. Just like you said, if Zeratul went for a cleave build, I could totally see that mosh pit coming in. But with that single target build that he has, absolutely the right choice. Good call here. Stage dive on the Rhaegar could be huge.
Second tribute now up with stage dive. You can stay in that top lane. Brightwing soaking bottom, trying to get every ounce that they can. Cure is going to get revealed if that had been put down. Brightwing coming in. Psystorm going to delay a moment longer. And it looks like we've got ourselves another team fight, Grubby.
Now, ETC is full life at the top, Falstad about half life. ETC can join battle faster. Zeratul is going for the tap. Cure is going to be coming back. And I think when Cure comes back on Zeratul in about 5 seconds, we should see a stage dive coming in. Falstad cannot chase that fast. This should be a Team Freedom tribute.
Almost there for the next Pulse Bomb, and that's when we'll see the re-engage. They've isolated a hero. They've got the Emerald Win. They're going in. The Pulse Bomb is going to land. That's going to be the first kill onto Greyman. They're looking for more as the power slide's going in. The cleanse in return, and a nice dwarf toss over as the Ancestral going to keep Ego alive, but that will be tribute number 2 of this game going over, making it 1-1 here for Team Freedom.
Is Falstad going to be a hero? Will Moly fly in by himself and Mighty Gust everyone away, stealing a boss? Probably not. It's too risky. The boss attempt here is very heads up, very straight up by Team Freedom.
But they're not killing it that fast. Molly is here. Who knows?
They don't have a lot of damage. Emerald Wind is 20 seconds away. They're posturing up. Ego is going to look for to get a huge stun. He's got that dwarf toss, the heavy impact, the nice W out. He dwarf tosses in. The pulse bomb is met, and there's the mighty gust you're talking about. But we have the re-engaged power slides going in. That's going to be Murd in the first casualty. Molly going down 2 for 1 so far.
Infinity comes in there with Greymane, finds his first mark. Will he find a second mark? Cure is very low.
It is an absolute bloodbath, and Beyond the Game comes out.
There we go.
Steals the boss.
There we go. Beyond the Game, steal that boss. 3 for 3 in takedowns. Mighty Gust angling wasn't just right.
It did enough, I guess.
But Greymane coming in late, he's like, you guys having a party without me? I want to be a part of that. And he didn't even have to use his Go for the Throat. He just used...
It's pretty wild.
Auto attacks and Work and Cleave.
It's pretty strong. You get him in that melee range, and again, they weren't able to get kind of that burst-style damage. I really worry for Team Freedom in fights like that because Pulse Bomb helped get some early kills, some early pressure, and things like that. But once that's done, Grubby, you are basically reliant on Zeratul on long cooldowns trying to get attacks. As we see a tongue here onto Zugrog. The stun as he tries to slide out. He's in a bad spot.
Illusion coming in there, still has Emerald Wind, wants to greed and not use it, finding it to be necessary to use it in the end. This is a 5 vs 5 stage dive. It's going to be pretty big, but he got isolated away thanks to Mighty Gust. Immediately will run away.
There's this giant circle on the ground. You're like, all right, I'm pretty sure somebody's coming here, so what if I just blow everybody else away?
Knock, knock, Mighty Gust. Don't want to know who's there. But yeah, it's like you said, if Void Prison and Pulse Bomb are the life of the party, then it's certainly a hangover afterwards. Much of that damage, much of that control is gone. In doing so, Team Freedom has very much elected for a very bursty team fight, but not really ready for like the 20-second later re-engage. A misjudgment, critical misjudgment, losing that boss down there. And now everyone in position for the top boss. Now, the next tribute location is going to be random.
It is random, yeah. They cycle in 3, which means the next one, it basically resets, can be anywhere on the map, top or bottom, mid, left, or right. And it will be on the bottom left side here for Team Freedom. We'll see how this plays out. A little bit safer position for them to defend. However, they are 1 away is Beyond the Game from getting the first curse of the game in Grubby. There's only 1 fort down. You got to imagine, team fight here and after this could be different. I think the defensive structure of this meant that Beyond the Game going to go ahead and start their boss as well. I think we've got something brewing up here.
And I think it's a good call generally, but I think they're a little bit late in doing so. This was a good tribute location for Beyond the Game. They had their own boss, and then the tribute all the way on the other side. But it looks like Team Freedom will show up on time. Boss is dropping low. Molly, can he do it this time? Will he be a hero? Tracer is actually set up there.
Collusion used the ice block to make sure he could stay on the point. Ends up using Emerald Wind to steal that. The power slide in is going to take down Molly. Then we got more going on as ST has already used his adaptation before, and he is very low. Cure trying to confirm the kill on the left as we've got action going on the right as we've got a stage dive into the face melt, into the power slide. That's going to be Ego staying alive because he is Murden. He is an avatar at the moment. But right now, 2 members down and a boss pushing the top lane.
Team Freedom was so defensively positioned. Oh, Infinity face melt. Oops. I think actually he could maybe go down in face melt, but he was far behind the gate. Team Freedom steals the boss. They get their revenge for that bottom boss. And now with the Curse Tribute, Freedom actually walking past the fort, at least curious on account of his cloak.
It looked like Tracer's like, oh, I can, oh wait, actually I can't follow. You're the invisible one. Getting the vision point to make sure they can thwart any engage here. BTG does save their top keep, but this is going to be Cure channeling it. And right now, 16 to 14, you can't blame them. They're going to give this up. They should have a relatively decent defense because of the anti-siege or the siege potential of Team Freedom right now. Yeah. So we'll see how well they hold.
A little bit lower siege potential. Then you have Dahaka and Falstad. They can put the stoppers, but Team Freedom does not want to leave this to chance or passivity. And the early predictive burrow will actually get outbaited by ETC. Cleanse comes out, but there we go. Dahaka goes down. His heroic choice is isolation and a value play here, min-maxing with the Void Prison.
Got it. The Emerald Wind's going to isolate a hero. 365 is going to be the target here. As Falstad goes down, they're going to look past this. If they get one more kill, Grubby, they can be looking to end the game. Their curse is still up. They don't have any threat anywhere else. The shields are here on the core. It might be a little bit too early to make this call. They might just want to try and double up on keeps. They've got their eyes on a couple of targets, but they're unable to confirm the kills. Looks like they're going to make just the keep call. But if a fight is brought to them, they will not back down. Beyond the game, being very aggressive with their defense.
Oh yeah, there's another 10 seconds left of the curse. There is no threat for Team Freedom, no defender's advantage to speak of besides those fountains. And Team Freedom shift their call. For about 3 seconds, they entertained the thought, what if we just try to end on the core here? But they go for the safe play. They find their way out of the mid keep and will be very far ahead indeed.
I love this picture, man. I was going to say the boss is coming up. Why don't you just go ahead and show it to me spawning, because this is going to be a huge point of contention going forward. 16 has been picked up. We've already seen these monster fights around the boss. We still have Falstad in the game. Emerald Wind's going to be there. Of course, the ice block was used last time to make sure he didn't get gusted. So counterplays on both sides. This could be electric here if they decide to opt for that. But again, with the global of Tahaka Falstad, easy defenses allow you to keep an eye on that with the rest of the team.
So an eye will be kept on that boss indeed, but it would be the depth of risk-taking maximum here for Team Freedom to start that boss. There's no way they want to contest that boss. I mean, consider, you are ahead 2 levels. It's about 4% HP and damage power level per level, so a little bit over 8%. And that's a nice advantage to have when you go into a fight. But equal talents. You don't really want to take a, let's call it a 55 to 45% chance fight.
It's fair.
When the map is 90 to 10 in your favor. You've literally got 2 keeps down, catapult pressure, so there's no need to take a gamble like that. All you'll do is wait for positive odds, like this one.
Ego in their sights. Tahaka's coming in here. They're going to look for the flight. They could potentially be looking for the Gust Falstad. It looked like he idled on the minimap, thinking he might come in. Tahaka's going to be there. The one thing to that point is you are 100% correct in that there's no need to force that boss fight. It would be more advantageous for you to have the Siege Giants, have the catapults pushing. Unfortunately, the other team has 2 globals, so it doesn't quite add up to get that big advantage. So they basically just have to idle for now, try and get 20.
Right. I mean, it's lovely to really threaten that boss and then allow core damage to be dealt. But because of the globals, everything is slowed down. Still, you want good fights though, and the best fight would be level 20 versus not level 20. And this should be Team Freedom's objective. But Beyond the Game, they don't want to wait for that. They're moving in, and ETC will go down. Beyond the Game does it. They have a 5 versus 4, 2 levels down, but here they go. Void Prison will come out and will isolate a few members.
They're isolated for now. Nasmus looking for an opportunity. No pulse bomb available. They have their sights turned. We see the Ancestral is going to land. Molly's taking so much damage. Cure trying to get out of there. He tried to get the takedown, was unable to get it. They're going to have to hearth back. Catapults will be on core. However, with 1 member down, that is going to be ETC. They're going to be able to get a curse. However, they're just trying like hell to get out of here. Cure's like, look, you're not going anywhere yet. I don't want you to get another advantage. I'm buying time.
That was very smart play there by Cure and by Team Freedom, actually pressuring there at the boss, delaying certain members, trying to prevent that curse from getting taken, but in the end, it was not enough. Dansky on Tassadar, he was too low. He had to go for the full back, so he couldn't interrupt. And Beyond the Game, grab a curse. Now, this curse is kind of like treading water. They're not going to get to the other side of the shore yet, but they're just not sinking yet. It's going to be a defensive curse, allowing them to grab 1 boss. Now, for Beyond the Game, in their favor, although the other boss gets taken, they still have a bottom 4th available. So Beyond the Game has made the first step to recovery in this game.
Oh, man. We saw this earlier. They didn't quite have a ton of damage to get this down quick enough. The top boss was picked up. We're going to have no contest here in the bottom because the curse is up. It's going to force a response out of Team Freedom. This boss now, the value is going to be pretty much nil. It might warrant them level 20 by the time they go up to defense if they can take that keep down or the fort down. But now they've got their eyes set on a defense. However, there's only 15 seconds left on this curse.
Yeah, and there's only 5 seconds left on the level 19 here for Team Freedom. They're going to get their ultimates at level 20, those Storm tier talents. Would you like some Infinite Archon or Rewind Zeratul? Triple continuous Emerald Wind. I mean, Beyond the Game here, they're going to have to fight down a Storm tier talent, and they will, dragging ETC into the boss with the boss stun.
Cure trying to get the reset on there. He's got the VP out, but we see Zugrug so very, very low. They're going to try and go back in. The Ancestral's going to land. Ice Block is going to be there for the moment. Now they're in a bad spot. Brightwing's going down. Stage Dive's going to come in just to try and buy some time. The Face Melt as well, but they're looking for the re-engage. Nazmus just barely dodges that Murden, and this boss is still pushing. Grubby, we've got Siege Giants behind it.
Whoa!
Right now, that is another member down, and BTG making plays.
Infinity jumping in there with the kill. Twilight Archon is the next victim here. Zeratul Cure gets pummeled here, and Bully Datesky goes down. Beyond the game, have they done it? Are they defeating the favorite here in the second map after a very chaotic game? Team Freedom falling to chaos.
Cure goes in.
Cure with the kill.
Cure goes in. He's looking for more. 365 is getting so very low. We're down to 50+%. They are still on the core. The Siege Giants doing damage. They are all in. 30% and falling.
20%.
Molly's going down. Cure making the plays, and just like that, 5,
Murden.
4. They did it. Oh my.
Beyond the game with the equalizer here. That wasn't anything but an easy core call, but they've done it. Meriden whacking away with that hammer, like slamming a nail into a wooden plank, and the Siege Giants as two trusty friends throwing rocks from across the fence.
The Siege Giants definitely paid off, and we look at the start of that, Grubby. It was 18-20. Kira goes in. He's like, look, I think we can do this. I think we can do this. And things fell apart real quick there. And shout outs to BTG for staying in that and then taking an amazing team fight there at the end.
Very nice gray main play there by Infinity, getting the kills, seeing things with the eye of the tiger, confirming those kills, but a little bit chaotic there. ETC jumps in, Collusion together with ETC tries to do the stage dive separation play with Emerald Wind, but it just got them a little bit too far separated. Slight lack of patience, and now suddenly we have a match on our hands.
We've got one hell of a match on our hands, and I can't wait to hear what Claris and the team have to say about this last game before we hit to game 3.
That's right, gentlemen. That was a doozy. Beyond the game overall, we could even have an audible moment where BTG suddenly picked up in emotion, in excitement, realizing that they could turn everything on its head there in game number 2.
Yeah, especially, like, I feel the game did not go quite as well at the beginning for Freedom as they were hoping for. But then they got their lead and everything looked great. They get 2 keeps there in a fantastic position and they aim for 20. And it really just completely turned against them in the last team fight. And that was mainly because we had a situation in which ETC was trying to go in. He gets dragged by the Haka into the boss stun, and all of a sudden nearly dies to it. And that happens at the same time as Zeratul is starting the flank.
Yeah, exactly. You see Cure coming on the side, and you have Collusion teleporting in to do that really amazing setup where they split the team with Emerald Wind. And ETC's ready to go until he gets stunned by the boss, and everything falls apart.
Exactly. So the Haka drags him into the stun, and then he's so low that he nearly dies as Brightwing and Zeratul are already fighting. So ETC has to go to the fountain, which is still up, and tries to go back in with the stage dive, but at that moment, Brightwing is already about to die, and all of a sudden it starts turning against them, and what looked like a super easy defense. The whole reason why they were flanking is because they were saying we don't even need to lose the keep here, we can actually just like kill them now, and then we end that core. And just that one moment turned it practically into a 4 versus 5 situation.
I mean, for me personally, what the most exciting factor was just the boss control. I mean, we were asking, you know, stage dive, mosh pit, stage dive. Team Freedom came out saying they want mobility. They got mobility, right? So you've got the Tracer, you've got the Zeratul, you then got the Brightwing and ETC that can all just pile drive in, look for that dive, try and isolate those members, which did happen a few times. You'd split them in half with the Emerald Wind, you'd split them in half with the stage dive. The thing for me, though, was the boss control. We saw 2 Gust find little to no value. That first one in the bottom lane on their side, you're thinking, man, imagine if they had the mosh pit. Imagine how different that fight could have gone. You know, BTG stick around in the second one. They go for the very early Gust, does absolutely nothing. Collusion comes in with the Emerald Wind and says, thank you very much, I'll take it. It really was Team Freedom's game to lose, and the very last second, BTG showing signs of life.
My favorite moment that we saw with boss control was actually the ice block on the red side boss. The ice block into Emerald Wind, such patience there to Collusion, just sits there. Team buys time, everyone has to sort of leave. Emerald comes out, boom, boss steals. So I feel like Freedom won the game, they lost the ending. Like they couldn't get the last nail in the coffin. So I feel like for them, mentality-wise, you probably feel like, oh, we messed up there at the end, but we basically won the game.
Kaldor, final thought?
I would agree with that. For me, it's really the last fight for the reasons mentioned. Before that, the lead was very comfortably in the corner of Freedom, even though I expected them to get ahead even further in the early game, thanks to the Zeratul Brightwing. The ganking never really happened, so the kills that I expected them to pick up, that didn't occur, but they still got a massive, massive lead, and then it just all completely went south on that last fight, and that was mainly because Tsudehaka and that amazing timing for the drag. You could say that maybe Freedom miscoordinated a little bit. I'm not quite sure what the communication there was, but if, for example, if Cure hears a second before he commits completely from ETC, hey, I'm dragged, I'm ending up in the boss stun, and just waits a bit longer, they can move back, not engage there, and then they still have an easy core defense and can take it from there. But that's not how it worked out.
All right, well, thank you very much, gents. We're going to go to a short break, but when we return, game number 3 here from the HGC 2017 finals, as we have them going up against one another.
The 2017 Heroes Global Championship Finals are brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Stitches was sad. Stitches want playtime. Stitches played too rough. No one play with Stitches. But Stitches found Nexus. In Nexus, everyone has to play with Stitches. So much playtime makes Stitches hungry.
The eternal conflict has shaped the destinies of mortal and immortal alike. But perhaps none more than Malthael, the former Archangel of Wisdom. With the Primeval's defeat, humanity, being born of both angels and demons, became one of the last vestiges of demonic power. Using their souls as strength, Malthael became the aspect of death and vowed to eliminate demonic corruption wherever it took root, even within the Nexus. Malthael is a deadly melee assassin who shreds apart high-health foes by branding them with the Reaper's Mark. Each swing of Malthael's sickle applies Reaper's Mark to his enemy. Marked foes are automatically revealed and take damage over time. The damage is based on the target's maximum health, so the higher health they have, the more damage it deals. His Q ability, Soul Rip, only becomes available when Reaper's Mark is active on at least one target. When cast, Malthael drains the souls of nearby enemies, dealing damage and healing himself for a set amount. Ripping the soul of a hero also heals him by a percentage of his target's maximum health. Malthael's second ability, Wraith Strike, also can only be used when Reaper's Mark is active. In a flash, the Archangel of Death teleports through his enemy, dealing damage and refreshing his Reaper's Mark. Wraith Strike can be used from a distance as both a way to chase down enemies or as a clever form of escape. Malthael's final basic ability is Death Shroud. With a thrash of his wings, Malthael lets loose a wave of deathly energy that applies Reaper's Mark to any foe it contacts. Death Shroud moves slowly, so aim carefully or fire from a hidden location. Malthael's first heroic is Tormented Souls. When activated, Malthael gains a chunk of armor and emits a torrent of souls that continually apply Reaper's Mark to enemies near him, allowing him to make liberal use of his basic abilities. Looking for a way to assert yourself as the true aspect of death? Last Rites may be more your style. When cast, Last Rites acts as a death sentence, and after a couple of seconds deals a large amount of damage to an enemy. The total damage done is equal to half of the target's missing health and ignores armor entirely. Additionally, this is our first questing heroic in Heroes of the Storm. For every hero Malthael kills with Last Rites, its cooldown is permanently reduced until it reaches the minimum of 15 seconds. Malthael's Reaper's Mark is everything. Spread your mark to deal damage quickly. Your marks can be a mobility tool with clever use of Wraith Strike, or just a way to stay alive when comboed with Soul Rip. While drafting, consider the fact that Malthael excels against frontline bruisers and tanks like Thrall, Sonya, and Arthas. Make sure to watch out for high mobility heroes like Vala and Tracer that can poke from a distance and shut down your marks. At level 1, Malthael can choose between 3 mobility talents. Consider how you can min-max these options to fit your playstyle and your team composition. Once the Black Harvest quest talent at level 4 completes, it permanently increases how long your Reaper's marks last. Even just a couple more seconds opens up a lot of flexibility for Malthael to make some powerful plays. Lastly, Malthael can pick up the No One Can Stop Death talent at level 20. After being the victim of a takedown, activate this talent to instantly revive at the Hall of Storms. With Malthael's arrival, death itself has descended upon the Nexus, and this time, no one will stop him.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the HGC 2017 finals as we continue things on here. 1-1 currently between Team Freedom and Beyond the Game. To my left, we have Kaldor, we have Wolf, we have Skimmy, and overall, I don't think any of us really thought we'd be at a Game 3. Is that fair to say?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think, again, from a Team Freedom mentality, they were pretty hyped throughout the entire game. Obviously, we can listen to their comms. We're sitting right next to them. And they were very calm, cool, and collected. They made that one misengage, which was, in theory, actually really cool. It's just the ETC situation there didn't lend to a good follow-up. But I think if you're looking at going into Game 3, you think, okay, we basically could win the series 3-0. We threw at the end there, but we won the majority of that game. And here's the Storm. All that matters is the last second when the core dies. But still, it feels like they played a winning game. Shouldn't be too disappointed.
I mean, as you said, the idea behind the engagement was simply to drive the fight away from the boss. So you don't want to fight underneath the boss. The concern was that if the opponent walks through the keep, goes to the core, that you have to fight on top of it, so you don't want to do that. You want to go past it, and that's where ETC wants to jump in. You flank with Zeratul, Brightwing moves in as well, and all of a sudden you drive the fight away from the boss. You can fight with a level 20 talent against level 16 talents on the opponent's side, but then the Dehaka drag happens, and that ruins your entire play, and all of a sudden you lose your team. So in that case, I feel Freedom, I wouldn't say they threw. It was just a very cool moment and a great play by Dehaka to ruin the idea that Freedom had.
All right, let's find out where we're going for our next battleground in this best of 3 as we head to Sky Temple by BTG. Skimmy.
Yeah, I mean, this is a map where it's going to force those team fights around objectives. It's going to really play into their style. And I just really want to see this Tyrell. We've asked for it games 1 and 2 from the Chinese team. They haven't shown it to us. They seem to be really locked into this idea of the Mirrodin, which, I mean, rightfully so. He's a very strong hero as a result of this rework with those level 7 and 16 power spikes. But still, Tyrell, it is their bread and butter. It lends so much to it. I'm still not sold on the idea of Falsed in last game. Yes, they get the win, but it wasn't the cleanest.
Yeah. All right, game number 3 now to decide who moves on to the winner's match to get the opportunity to play against Fnatic.
With talking... yeah, it's going to be fun. So one thing about the last game that I still have to say is that we criticized the Chinese team for not really having a synergy, and that a lot of the victory really depended on that one play, whereas Freedom throughout the entirety of the map looked better. But overall, I have to say, if you compare the performance of BTG in Game 1 to their performance in Game number 2, they definitely leveled that up. So if they can continue on that trend, then Freedom is going to have a much tougher game now on the third map.
Yeah, I feel like when it comes to the simple things, that's where Beyond the Game has excelled, these scrappy fights and, you know, being able to win these small moments, not think of the bigger picture. Like, it's a tale of, as you say, Dehaka ruining this incredibly cool setup from Team Freedom, and they were just like, no, let's just shut this really 3-step process down with one small move, and I think that's where they've really excelled.
Now, the interesting part for me actually was that we talked in the first game a lot about the chaos that was oftentimes introduced and how BTG had problems capitalizing on it. And traditionally, that's actually what Chinese teams excelled at. If there was chaos in team fights and just like the fight being all over the place, that's where their coordination and their synergy really comes through. But as BTG is more or less a Chinese pickup team where we have now 3 players that got replaced, they don't have quite the same level of synergy you would normally expect from a Chinese team. So in the second game, they worked a lot better towards those goals. And with what we're seeing right now from the draft, it feels a bit to me that they are trying to stick with the same comfort picks, or at least a similar idea of what they showcased on First Hollow.
And I like that a lot because I say it actually did find a fair bit of value in terms of that mercenary control and just the ability to find the value with the Ancestral, especially you're saying a lot of those Ancestrals were actually meeting their mark, where in some case, you know, it can land a little bit lackluster. So the fact they've gone for this, once again, doesn't really reveal too much, does give them the option to then try and keep up with this mobility that we saw from Team Freedom, because they could realistically do the exact same kind of strat, but on this map as well.
I think that Team Freedom, no matter what DPS they are going to run here, are really still looking towards that Brightwing pick. The boss is very impactful on this map. We saw great play out of Collusion, zoning that out. They're going to take the Task Tracer again. I think for BTG here, a Brightwing ban is pretty strong. You don't think of Brightwing as a super empowering support for Tracer, but boss control has been a big determining factor in these two teams that have been so closely matched in terms of laning and things like that when they match the globals. So that boss could be a deciding factor in this game, and taking that card away from Team Freedom would be a good move here, I think, for BTG.
I would take it away from BTG. I would be more worried that BTG
exactly.
says, hey, if you leave Brightwing up, then we are taking the double support here, and we start to control, first of all, Tracer, and also we have a tool against ETC in case that he decides to go Mosh Pit over Stage Dive in this game.
And if they don't decide to actually pick it themselves, then it would make sense to go for that ban, because otherwise, as you say, it does really allow them to have the double shield. They go for the Hark here instead. They do not want any chance of an isolation, which really suggests to me they are all about piling in.
I like that also for a different reason. Before Tracer and Tassadar was picked, when we didn't know that Freedom wanted to go down that path again, I thought for them, the Haka would actually be a great pick, because then you end up again with your global, you can go ETC into Mosh Pit, and you can really control the map extremely well. And globals on this map are very, very powerful. So in this case, they did decide to go into Tracer Tassadar in a higher priority, which I actually like, but that means that the Haka was still an option for later on, and BTG takes that away from them.
I need to highlight the Abathur ban right now, though, so that obviously will give you some potential global presence. Obviously works really well with Greymane and Rhaegar in the early game for camp control. Leaving the Brightwing open, I get the feeling Beyond the Game isn't really very comfortable with Brightwing, and I don't think they'll pick it up here. Looking now at the Genji ban they showed us in both games 1 and 2 here, so they could target ban on Infinity, who's shown those hyper carry type DPS picks. So Brightwing available now. I don't get the sense they'll pick it, but it feels silly not to, right? It's so strong against the comps Freedom has shown us. And again, they're not going to pick it. I didn't think they would.
So they don't go for Brightwing. They banned out their...
Trip.
What's better than double support?
Win career now. I mean, that's exactly what Career said, right? Double utility. It's all about damage, damage, damage.
When you can't win with the double support, you pick triple support.
There you go. Didn't expect this one. I suppose probably nobody did.
Okay, but there's a couple of things to talk about. So, for the reason mentioned, we like the Brightwing. Especially after you banned out the Haka, you still want to pick up a global. Another option for them would have been to leave the Haka open, hope that it's not getting banned out by Freedom, and they take the Haka themselves. But now, all of a sudden, they stepped it up to a completely different level by simply saying, yes, we take still Brightwing and the global, but also we are jumping straight into Karazim here.
I want to ask a lovely question. If there was ever going to be a chance for Bloodlust. If there was ever going to be a chance for Bloodlust.
I mean, right now it just feels like a protect the Greymane composition, almost like mission kill Tracer. So
I don't think we'll see Bloodlust, but if it is Quicksilver bullets, I mean, I guess you could make an argument for it coming through here. Eyes in the Dark, same build we saw just earlier.
That's why I said chance, just so we are on the same page.
There certainly is an argument. I think that could be made. All right, Lucio Sonia, so Soul Lane here. Going to be a little bit odd. You know, I think it's going to be, well, in Korea, in situations like this, often Karazim becomes a solo laner early, then Brightwing later, obviously, with the global presence. What a weird game we've got coming up on our hands here.
That's one way to describe it.
We talked about Karazim going to be prioritized a lot higher at this tournament, and he brings a lot to the table. You have the on-point damage. They're putting extra pressure on Tracer with all of this. So Tracer is in a situation where she has to deliver most of the damage on the side of Team Freedom, and where she's one of the heroes with the most impact in the setup. And right now you have the on-point damage through Kerosene, you have Brightwing as a direct counter, so you have a lot of tools that you can actually use to get her low. Greymane can then go in with Go for the Throat. So I feel like the idea here is really shut down Tracer as hard as you can, and then you're going to be in a great spot to win these team fights. And of course, you can also heavily out-sustain your opponent.
The question I'll be asking you, though, at the desk is it going to be a palm or is it going to be the seven-sided strike? Because at this stage here, I would say that if they are so heavily reliant on the Greymane to pop off, if he doesn't, then, hey, they're a bunch of supports basically saying, go do your job. And if he doesn't do it, then they're all just sort of hanging around and Tracer just runs rampant.
I think there's arguments on both sides. Seven-sided can really punish the Sonya ETC heavy aggression to try to catch that Greymane. But Palm protects the Greymane, and what I think this comp is going to do to try to beat the Tracer is not necessarily blow up the Tracer, then win the longer fight that way, is out-sustain Tracer's damage, which is low in output, slowly over time. It's really that burst that comes through with the CC that's going to get the kill. So that's why I think Palm could actually be the better option here.
But you could also make the argument for Brightwing trying to get an isolation with Emerald Wind and then coming in with a seven-sided. So there's definitely a lot of aspects that they could show with this, since you have your third support, you have Rhaegar, for not something I say also often.
No.
For the Ancestral and just having the panic button ready for Greymane. The one thing that I personally am actually looking to is, besides all the theory crafting about, okay, do they isolate with Brightwing and try to capitalize on a seven-sided, is will the triple support also affect Muradin's build? Because now we can all of a sudden talk about why healing static, why trying to go into the double thunderclap and trying to, because the whole idea is be sustainable and unkillable. But now all of a sudden you can say, like, wait a second, sustain? I guess I have a bit of that.
Yeah.
I might need more damage, so are we going to try and play around that? So I hope that the triple support, as crazy as it is on the face of it already, is also going to trigger very interesting talent builds now.
That's right. So what he's saying is Haymaker into seven-sided. Thank you very much, gentlemen. As we
You're laughing. I could see that.
It could.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As we go over now to the commentary team, game number 3. Let's get it done.
Speaking of Haymaker, we got a Haymaker of a series here because they're bringing the big action. We've got a lot of action in our first few games, but winner is going to move into that upper bracket. Lower, probably not the place you want to be this early in the day.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to face Fnatic in the upper bracket, but it's still a very lovely place to be, I heard at least. So let's see who can make it. Is it going to be BTG or is it going to be Team Freedom? I just realized there's triple support on the right side for Beyond the Game.
If you average out solo support first game, triple support the other one, still leads the double support
Still
over.
average.
Speaking of triple support, we're going to hit game number 3 right now as we've got BTG taking on Team Freedom. Winner moves on. The other one's going to drop down. We're going to see how this plays out here on Sky Temple.
And Jayhow, I better hope that Team Freedom fans that may be watching are not believers in historical results indicating any likelihood for the future, because Tassadar's statistics so far in this tournament are abysmal indeed. 1 win, 7 losses. That's from yesterday and today together. In this series alone, 0-2 on the Tassadar. And from yesterday, 1-5.
So what you're saying is
Fnatic
Team Freedom is
out.
trying to change history.
Sure, I mean, they can double his win rate.
They could double his win rate in 1 game as we got Beyond the Game here on the right side. See, they're posturing up with a triple lane phase here in the bottom. Of course, you're going to try and get early value out of the Greymane. Of course, the Lightning Bomb picked up by Rhaegar. Make sure and get that early siege damage in. You also have a few heals there by Brightwing if they decide to push in. But so far, Team Freedom not showing anywhere on the map, so very dangerous to go in.
And I think this draft is really a big challenge. Take away the names, take away the fact that Beyond the Game is playing with 4 substitutes. And you look at the draft, and I would say Beyond the Game has a massive advantage here. Tracer Tassadar is the old trick to get easy wins, but it hasn't been easy for them in a very long time now. With so many layers of protection, with Polymorph, with the sustain the teams are bringing out, survive that pulse bomb, and she just becomes an annoying gnat, something to be swatted away.
All right, well, Grubby, Caldor was talking about some survivability, and speaking of survivability, that's going to be first blood as Rhaegar goes down. But Burden not opting to go into a perfect storm, still going into more survivability against this. I mean, what do you make of it?
I mean, there's a little bit of poison damage here in Sonya, and that's pretty much it insofar as picking third wind for recovering from poison. Sometimes we see, okay, you want third wind because there's Gul'dan or Linara. In this case, it really is about the re-engage. Anytime there's beacon control battleground, such as Brax's holdout or indeed Sky Temple, third wind has value. Recover very fast from a low health pool after trading and win the re-engage. And it's certainly interesting. You've got triple supports and still go for that?
So Pulse Bomb going out onto ST, gonna live through that. The threat though, as Nasmus trying to do work. We see the top channel was momentarily channeled there by Sonya as the mid. Complete control here by Team Freedom. Wonder if Team Freedom, because that top one has not been channeled much, if they might try and opt for an early team fight, as they do have 4 for the moment. But Tassadar, as we can see on the mini-map, still there, but the action clearly here in the top.
Interesting to see Molly on Rhaegar. He was fairly instrumental on Falstad in the last match on Cursed Hollow. And 365 went double Rhaegar. Now it's going to be Molly on the Rhaegar, from the Falstad to the Rhaegar. Interesting Karazin talent as well. Spirit Ally getting the healing rather than the 50% damage reduction against Tracer's auto attacks.
All heals all the time for this team. We're going to see how it plays out as Zugrug under attack there. Infinity trying to go in, taking a little bit of damage on the way back, but triple support says, you know what, man, you're fine. We only have 2 here. That's all that matters.
Nice sound wave there from Collusion. Pumping everyone away. Power slide, and that should be a kill. Infinity goes down. The Greymane will get eliminated, and that's the vast majority of Temple lasers for Freedom shot towards the structures of Beyond the Game.
That's a huge bone right there. They now find themselves a full level up, and it was all because of the early rotations and Sonya trying to get up there to make sure and hold on to everything. It really worked out well, and they did end up indeed taking that fight. They ended up getting a pick out of it, stretching their lead, which could be a pretty determining factor if they could get to 10 a little bit quicker, because that next Temple phase, of course, will be solo in the bot.
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. Also, the clearing of the way fast at the top allows Team Freedom to send Sonya to do the Bruiser Camp. Actually broke it off. That's interesting. I could swear I could see him going for that Bruiser Camp. In what state did he leave it? He only killed the Wizard of the Bruiser Camp and will be going back to the top lane for that bit of XP. But Team Freedom now, with the talent lead, can push bottom lane and leverage that to their advantage. Keep in mind that Pulse Bomb is available, so we have the Siege Cap here being won by Team Freedom.
I hear Wizard, I hear Leverage, it sounds like Levy something. You're a wizard, Grubby. Now we're back on the camp action. Here, going to start that. Got a little bit of action down here. Siege Giants pushing in bot lane, trying to get a bit more structure damage, make this temple even more valuable. Collusion coming in there, getting a little boop action going on, as Infinity also trying to return the favor and trying to hop on UTC there.
Collusion, one of the few Lucios who picks off the wall the cooldown reduction on Soundwave if you use it within a second of coming away from one of the walls on the battleground. Wants to be very disruptive plenty of times, and he's going to need that knockback in order to deal with the furious assault that Greymane and Karazin can represent. We see Karazin picking up the Radiant Dash talent at level 7. More dashes. He's going to be combining that with the level 16 talent. The Flurry of Fists, 6 fists in rapid succession. And that's going to make him really strong, actually, in dealing with Tracer. There was Mary Day from former MVP Black, former member of MVP Black, that said that he loves to go Karazin against Tracer to deal with her. One of the very mobile ones that can deal with her speed.
World-renowned as the best Karazin player in Heroes history and one of the best supports all around. As again, that 10 spike that we alluded to a few minutes ago has now crept in here for Team Freedom, as they are very close. As one tower goes down, they'll have 10 momentarily. We'll see what they can do with it. Might make an early boss play. We'll see if they try, but as we saw in the previous game, didn't quite have the firepower to burst through it. So we have a look in at the top lane, as well as we have Tassadar and Sonya trying to defend it.
The Sky Temple gods look favorably upon Team Freedom on account of them doing worship on the sun and the moon shrines here, channeling those lasers. And this is the map choice for Beyond the Game, but it's a very good map for Team Freedom with an 85% win rate in Phase 2 of the HGC Pro Division in NA. 85% win rate makes Sky Temple the second best map for Team Freedom by the stats, trailing narrowly Infernal Shrines. So Team Freedom is showing that level of comfort here on this map so far.
See ST waiting in the bush there, looking for an opportunity. Now he's been found out. You have the phase shift in, unable to get that, but you can see they were baiting it out. Murden was sitting there like, yeah, please don't hurt me. And really it's like, look, you try and hurt me. I got friends that'll come in. Don't bully me, man.
In the meantime, no haze will be made. It's going to be Avatar, but it will also be Seven-Sided Strike together with Go for the Throat and the Emerald Wind. So there is that power of Seven-Sided Strike. It's always risky to go for Palm when you have 2 additional supports. There's a big risk of Palm not going off due to a random healing pulse of Brightwing, for instance.
Stage dive not going to be picked up as we see Moshpit finally locked in, as he took quite a bit of time to figure out what his heroic would be. No Haymaker on the side of Murden, as some of us probably wouldn't have minded seeing in this game into that 7-sided strike. But now, there we go. There's the 7-sided strike. Rest of the team coming in to try and soak up some of that damage. The cleanse over onto the one lone member into that mosh pit. Now we see
Collusion
going in deep.
Nice sound barrier, nice off the wall sound wave as well. Here with the second one on account of that sound barrier. Okay, on account of that talent off the wall, 2 kills, 3 kills.
Boss time.
And that's a boss time, yeah.
Boy, I tell you, when you're at this point and you're 7.5 minutes in, 2 levels up, you get that big team wipe, 3 members going down. You go directly over to the boss. We'll take a quick look at that replay. The mosh pit forced the cleanse, and you can see the pulse bomb. And as you said, Soundberry into a little bit of boop action going on there.
There's Soundwave number 1. Soundwave number 2 is available just seconds later, setting up another kill. Nice power slide from Zagrug. And not even a second of thought for that boss call. That's the kind of calls you want to be making very clean.
Credits to BTG there, recognizing that, look, we're going to end up giving a lot. We're down a couple of levels. We can't really contest this, and we've got to try and get something. They get a few shots in on that mid-temple. The boss is going to be pushing, which has to be contested. But I think the surprising thing is they leave Cure down here. Collusion really quick trying to go out about that. And shout out to Kendrick, our Gold Club caster, along with Tetra this year. Good to hear from you, man.
See you soon at Blizzcon, Kendrick. He's going to be making his way out for that one as well. For now, cheering from the sidelines, and of course, he is very well familiar with some of these crazy comps here. Triple support, is it the exception, or will it soon be the trend?
Oh, Collusion's like, look, guys, I'm really fast. I've got rollerblades. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And team's like, look, let's just fall back. We've got a nice, sizable lead. We're heavily up in structures. Fall back. But Grumpy, the mini-map, there are 3 towers, all forts there, showing on the side of Team Freedom. At this point, you can play around the map and choke it out. And the best thing for Beyond the Game, they're going to have to wait and hope that the next one is a single altar or single temple phase, so they can try and at least force a fight. Else they're going to have to make something happen before 16 comes in.
Right, Jayhow, and that's what they want. At this point, they will take any fight. A 40-60, yes, please. The only thing that they don't want is to fight without... Well, to lose the game without ever having had a fight. Do nothing and the map will eventually turn itself against them. And so they need to force a fight right here, right now. Even before level 13 talent, they know they'll get it soon. They should search a fight. But the problem is the whole map is blue, so they clear waves. There is a bruiser camp top, and Team Freedom will manipulate this, leave the bruiser camp, and go somewhere else. Only trouble is, there's nothing else to do.
As you can see, Team Freedom taking a very cautious approach, and rightfully so. We saw the phase shift in attempt, although Zagrug, he's going to be met here. The rest of his team's like, wait a minute, can we go in? Cure trying to land the spear is going to miss. Does have that jump in, though, with the level 13 talent on that mystical spear.
ST was heavily baiting out an engage on himself. He was deliberately putting himself in power slide range, knowing that a Radiant Dash was available. He wants Team Freedom to sense a weakness that isn't exactly there, allowing Beyond the Game to get a fight pre-16. But that chance has evaporated like snow before the midsummer sun. Beyond the Game will be up against the level 16 talent right as the temples are about to spawn any second now. And that's really troubling for them.
It's troubling. We see the mini-map. You see Brightwing all the way at the top using that global to try and defend that. And it's a tough defense for Brightwing. Double temple phase.
Double temple.
And Team Freedom can basically, they have easy retreat points because all of their forts are still up. So if things don't even go halfway right, you just fall back. We'll see exactly how aggressive they want to be as Collusion wall riding his way around the map. They're going to take control of vision, take control of the rotations. And if they just trade here, it's a huge win for Team Freedom and a very frustrating defense for Beyond the Game.
Beyond the Game, skirting around the edges of vision, trying to keep their position and their whereabouts hidden for as long as possible. Ego is representing more forces, but you never know for sure. Are they really there? And to a degree they are, but Karazim is actually going to set up for the trade. It's the safe play, it's the logical play, it's how you should do it, I'm just not sure that the map permits for it anymore, JL.
This map is one of the least forgiving, and look at this. They're rotating up with that 16 talent tier spike. Nasmus trying to go in on the Tracer, but the dash out by Karazim. The shift in, going to reveal what's going on. They're going to start to rotate down because Sonya was left here. Right now, Ego holding fort, but 3 levels down at this point. That is more than just talents, and all of a sudden, Ego's in a bad spot. The nice interrupt on the Dwarf Toss going to force out the Ancestral Grubby.
Very nice by Zarkrog. Never want to use that face melt unless someone is already jumping away. And it's a kill on Muradin in Avatar mode. Another power slide, Pulse Bomb, Team Freedom with the double kill. And now they don't even need the lasers.
Give me some more, Grubby. Give me some more ice blocks coming out. It's going to be 3 members down.
Right here.
Oh, yeah, it feels good. They're going to go in. They're going to try and take mid keep. Maybe they're going to back off. They're going to play it safe. I thought that they had a potential. Death timer's a bit too short. This is one of those more aggressive and more siege-oriented team. Will probably go in, take that mid keep, go directly to core. But they are so far ahead that they're going to grab some temples, take a couple keeps in the process, and just choke them out. At this point, all Team Freedom has to do is choke Beyond the Game out of this game. They are doing it just on temples and talent tiers alone.
Exactly. I mean, if Team Freedom had a minion wave, I do believe they would have gone for that keep at least, or maybe the core. But with the lack of a minion wave, it was the safe play that was the call. Not too exciting, maybe, but 100% correct. There's plenty of excitement.
It's too correct. It's too correct. No Haymaker, come on, man. Don't go for core.
So right, it hurts.
Well, right now, it's a tough defense. Boss is going to be there, and that might actually be Beyond the Game's only way to try and get back into this game. They're almost 16. Force the boss out. Force a fight. See if Team Freedom will take the bait. And if you're Team Freedom, you're like, that's a nice boss you have there. Go ahead and take it. We'll gladly stand behind our walls, stand behind our fort, and give it up. They are so far ahead. Right now, Beyond the Game has to do something. And if it's forcing a boss fight, this is the only thing they can do. They're in position. They're looking for a fight. But right now, it just seems like they're waiting to pull the trigger.
Beyond the Game is sending a message to Team Freedom. Excuse me, would you be so kind as to start the boss, please? It's been a while since we've had a boss throw. And Team Freedom says, no, thank you. We prefer to play
Wait
it
a minute.
Wait
1 minute. Tassadar, where were you?
Let's see that again. Enhance. But yeah, actually, he got taken out by Karazim behind the gate, and it's suddenly...
His Archon is still off cooldown. He could have double shifted at what point? I know we might have missed that, but this is a boss. Now, giving up a boss, no big deal, Grubby. Giving up a boss while simultaneously losing a member on...
I mean, this is a little bit reminiscent of the Cursed Hollow situation. Game 2, Beyond the Game wins it. They were 2 levels and a bit down. They just needed 1 tribute, and they actually take a boss, they get a kill, get the curse, the map objective, and then win with out their Storm tier talent. Now, that's a Cinderella story. It happened once. I don't know that it can happen again. Look at the blue bruiser count. Double bruises at the core.
It's a bit too early to hit the panic button, but you are lifting that plastic cover and your fingers hovering over it. Team Freedom, not quite there yet. But the fact that Tassadar went down, now they don't have 20. Now they don't have anything. You have Brightwing, of course, defending against that. Now, all of a sudden, we have a potential, as you said, Cursed Hollow moment. That 18 to 20 fight that we had. Team Freedom, I want to see what they do here. Reasonably, you get 20 and you come down and defend, but are they shook right now?
Everyone is watching to see what you will do. 7-sided strike on Sonya. Sound barrier's good. Emerald Wind, even better. Cure, isolated away. No level 20 yet. He stays alive by the skin of his teeth. Ego cannot accept this. Injustice goes in. 4-man mosh pit.
We've got a 4-man mosh. We've got a power slide over. That's going to be 2 members down. Zugrugga team starting to clean up. That is 3. Let's make it 4. You know what, Grubby? I think we might have all 5 here. Ego in all kinds of trouble. Dwarf tosses away. And just like that, Team Freedom will march their way to the core, move on to the upper bracket finals against Fnatic, and that is going to be Team Freedom taking the victory here in game number 3.
2-1. Closer maybe than they would have liked, but it's a victory, and that still feels good. And Beyond the Game availed themselves heroically. They've done better than most would have expected them to do. Team Freedom wins that one. Beyond the Game to the loser bracket against Darksided. Team Freedom will meet the challenge of Fnatic.
Will meet the challenge of Fnatic. I imagine when they play Fnatic, it won't be against triple support that we saw there from Beyond the Game. Obviously being a little bit more experimental with their drafts. Unfortunately, didn't work out for them in that game, but credits to Team Freedom. They ran a very aggressive comp back into that Task Tracer. This time, They had the Sonya, and it seemed really impactful that last team fight. When you're not able to take, she didn't have 20, but that Ignore Pain popped in, and then all that healing from that Whirlwind kept her alive. That was, if they got that first pick on Sonya, we're looking at a very different game.
This was Lucio Killusion's playground. Perfect sound barriers, much better than the rest of the series so far. Even has 21 hero damage, 21,000 hero damage, more than Tassadar ETC. That's pretty unusual. With that off-the-wall talent there, Killusion saving Sonya and saving the game. First Hello will not be on a repeat. But you know what? I feel like BTG overused something. They dangerously overused supports. What if there are no supports left and Fnatic will go 0 support style against Team Freedom?
I think that's something to consider, and I think something to consider also for that draft is going to be our analysis desk with players.
An ambitious play there from BTG, unfortunately not to be for them, as Team Freedom is able to march on 2-1. And boys?
The experiment was not a success. It was a disaster. I'm watching Sonya survive better with Whirlwind and Ignore Pain than Muradin as Avatar and 3 supports and an Ancestral surviving. It just wasn't a good time for BTG.
I said it while we were watching the game, and I have to say it again, I'm happy they lost with this, because if triple support becomes the standard, yeah, that would be not quite the meta that I'm looking forward to. I like it a bit more aggressive than that, but yeah, it backfired hard.
On a serious note, I think, what's the biggest weakness of a support-heavy composition is their lack of wave clear, and what better map to try and abuse that on with the sieging potential than Sky Temple, where if, you win these team fights, progressively the map is getting less and less structured in your favor, so they can run with the win physically, and, if you can't survive, then, yeah, the demise really is there from the get-go.
Well, that pretty much wraps up what we thought of game number 3, I think, as we can head over to the stage now to hear from Kevin and with Team Freedom.
Thank you so much, Kylaris. And that's right, I'm here with Zugrug, the tank player for Team Freedom. Congratulations on winning that series. I'm sure it was a little bit bumpier than you probably would have wanted, but congratulations all the same. You know, your roster is probably known as one of the most improved over the course of the entire HGC. You guys have come a very long way since the beginning. What do you think has contributed to that growth as a team?
Just our team, everyone's working hard, playing Hero League every day, trying super hard in scrims. Like, everyone has the mindset that we want to be the best.
That's awesome. Now, I know when we had our Media Day interviews, I was very impressed with your team's sense of self-awareness. I know that this is one of the few international tournaments you've been able to be a part of. So it sounds like you have a very grounded perspective of where you stand in terms of the landscape. But for your team, what would be a satisfying result in terms of standings for this tournament for you to walk away feeling satisfied with your performance?
We definitely want to get out of groups, but I think everyone's aiming for at least a top 4 finish at Blizzcon.
That's fantastic. I love it. All right, so next up, the winners match. This is Fnatic. How do you plan for a team like that? What's the game plan?
We've looked at their drafts a lot. We scrimmed them when we were at the Western Clash, and they kind of destroyed us, but we've gotten a lot better since then, and I think we're prepared. We've prepared the most for them, like looking at drafts and everything.
Awesome. Well, Zugreg, good luck, man. Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
All right. Team Freedom takes a victory there. They move on. They're going to face up against Fnatic next in the winners match. It's just going to be a short break. Until then, stick with us. We'll be right back.